One sec. Let me get the pillow out. Okay, there we go.
Get the pillow. Welcome back, everyone, to the Mastering Runeterra podcast with Jay and Bay. Today we've got a great episode for you guys. Patch notes are here. Brand new format. We've all been waiting for this for weeks. So excited to go over it. Excited to play this new metagame of ours. What do you say, Bay?
Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm so tired of seeing the same like 2-3 decks over and over and over again. This was a huge patch. Lots has changed.
Massive. I thought they were just going to give us a little bit, and man, I feel like they basically gave us everything we were asking for. A bunch of nerfs to the top decks that were a little bit oppressive. And then even some buffs to some things that we're not seeing play, which I really kind of didn't expect, because that was something that maybe we could have seen for a long time now. And I was like, why would we see it now? But really goes to show that Riot's listening to their community, and gives me a lot of hope for the future.
Yeah, pretty exciting. I'm with you. I was hoping at least for a couple of nerfs, but we got a few nerfs, a few really, really big ones. And then also, like you said, some buffs that could possibly bring in some not previously good champions into the meta. But we'll see. We'll go over it in the episode.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump into it. So we'll go at the top down from the patch notes that were released. So first up is Twisted Fate. Now 9 cards instead of 8 to level up. It will touch on the other 2 as well to go to the Twisted Fate Fizz deck. There's also Pick a Card has gone from 3 mana to 2 mana, but now you draw 2 cards instead of 3 cards. And the Wiggly Burblefish, you cute little fish, you has gone down to a 2/1 from a 3/1. So 3 significant nerfs to the TF Fizz deck. What are your thoughts on these ones?
These are great nerfs. Clearly intended to keep the deck intact, but to keep it from being like the all dominant, ridiculous force that it was pre-patch. And I think they did a really good job. Twisted Fate, oh man, I saw that because Twisted Fate's first on the patch notes, right? So I saw it and it said Twisted Fate goes from 8 cards to 9 cards to level, and I was like, that's it. No. I was like,
Wouldn't be enough, eh?
Yeah, but that with the pick a card change really it makes it really hard for them to do the turn 4 blue card, pick a card flip, right? Immediately. Which was just so oppressive. All this definitely brings TF Fizz down quite a bit, but unfortunately for some, the deck is still very good. It's still probably bottom of tier 1, possibly top of tier 2, still crushing ladder. It's just a lot less good than it used to be. It feels a lot more fair now.
Yeah, when you said you thought it would still be a contender, I was really surprised, because I thought these nerfs kind of just ended its life basically. But we were doing a learning stream in the Discord yesterday, and one of our opponents flipped Twisted Fate on turn 5 with it being 9 cards and with Pick a Card only drawing 2, which was absolutely insane. And so obviously that's not going to be very common, and it's they Yahtzee, won the lottery, got there. But it could still happen, and with some amount of frequency. So it's still a deck, which you love to see. Don't want to see things totally pushed out completely. Just made fair, just made balance, which I think they've done a great job of here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like the changes. I doubt the deck will need another nerf. I think it's gonna be okay. Right now it's kind of tearing things up because it's basically a fine-tuned deck, right? Whereas everyone else is like, oh, new patch, new meta, right? We're all trying out different things. And here comes this well-oiled machine here to just run you over. So it's its numbers are on the up and up. People feel like they can play things that FizzTF used to keep in check, which you can now a lot more than before. But FizzTF is still good. So if you're running into those, if you're playing FizzTF now, you're running into a lot more better matchups. So while the deck is weaker, the deck is still performing very well.
Yeah. From what you've seen so far, I know it's still early days. Do you think is it a possible tournament inclusion?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It the only thing that keeps you from playing is Twisted Fate, and now you're not playing Twisted Fate Aphelios. So Twisted Fate Fizz is practically a free inclusion. It doesn't keep you from playing anything else you want to play. Nothing else is Bilgewater PNZ, right? Nothing. You're never playing Fizz in any other deck, and Twisted Fate isn't in any other deck besides, like, I don't know, maybe Go Hard. So yeah, like it's a free inclusion and it's a super strong deck, and it still preys on a lot of the very strong decks in the meta, such as Zoe Lee.
Yeah, good point. Man, it's gonna be interesting. I can't wait for next week's podcast to see the results from this coming week from the tournaments, just to start to give us an idea of what's actually winning and working. Okay, on to the next one. I'm going to jump around here a little bit. The other sort of staple in the format was Aphelios, the other really kind of like overpowered thing. And man, did it ever take a nerf. So Aphelios, all of his moon weapons now cost 3 instead of 2. And then also the Veiled Temple, instead of giving your creatures +1/+1, now it gives them +1/+0. And then small caveat, the Gifts from Beyond, Aphelios Gifts from Beyond, is 1 mana instead of 2 mana, which is, I guess, technically a buff. But man, this one, not as clean, I would say, as the Twisted Fate nerf. Weapons costing 3 seems like a lot to me. And then also the Temple not buffing toughness also makes it a lot worse, kind of like we saw with Grand Plaza. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is huge. They wanted this man out of the meta, at least for a while. And I think they had to do something drastic. I expected to see either Aphelios go to 4, weapons go to 3, and Temple go to like 5 mana. That was my thought of where they're gonna go. But like if you take any of these nerfs, Veiled Temple or the Aphelios weapons, and you just pick one, I'm still playing that deck. Like I'm still playing 3 temples in my Aphelios deck, even if Temple only gives +1/+0. That deck was just like strictly better than everything besides TF Fizz. And same thing with the 3. If weapons cost 3, I'm still playing that deck. But both of those things it's just too much for the deck to the deck being like the Zoe Aphelios, TF Aphelios type strategies. It's just a little too much for it to overcome. You're just at such a huge mana disadvantage now, and you can no longer do the turn 3 Aphelios plus Crescendum into box to plus play. You just can't do it anymore. Yeah, it's huge. I haven't seen Aphelios since the patch.
Yeah, Sam, I don't think I've seen it either. Even people talking about trying to play the moon weapons with Tri-Beam because they all cost 3 now and they can buff up your Tri-Beam, but that's very, very slow. Yeah, I almost, now that we're reading over these notes, like I almost feel bad for Aphelios. I liked Aphelios. I thought that it was an interesting deck, an interesting champion, give you a lot of different like decision points and play patterns, very unique. I kind of hope that they give him like a little bit of a buff at some point so that he could come back, because unlike we're talking about with Twisted Fate Fizz, I feel like he's just been totally dead. Like he's gone now. Like you're saying, you're not seeing him at all. Yeah, you can't play him. I was thinking, like you were saying, if you only did one of the 2 nerfs, you could still play him. So I was like, okay, what if they left Temple the way it was? I'm like, then you play Temple in a bunch of other decks, and it's like, I don't know. Is it too good though? Like it was good, but like when we had it in like Zoe Lee and other decks, like it was good, but like I don't know if it was too good.
I think it was too good. Temple was just like, the meta got to a point where if I wasn't playing against TF Fizz, I was playing against any other deck besides maybe like discard aggro, I was mulliganing for 1-drop Aphelios and Temple every single game. I was just mulliganing every other card every single game, because if I got those 3 cards or a combination of 2 of them, I was just going to win the game almost every time. It was disgusting. And then yeah, even if I didn't have Aphelios, Temple just gave you so much value. Like you just play Temple and then you'd play Fangs, or God forbid another Temple, and the game's just over. Like my things are just bigger than yours forever, and I'm casting at least 1 more spell a turn. It's so, and Targon just keeps these advantages rolling, right? It doesn't like just draw another card. It just, every single card in the deck just has another card attached, right? You have the Priestess, you have Aphelios, you have Fangs, you have Zoe, right? Like Star Shaping. All these cards aren't just 1 card. So you never run out of gas. You never run out of gas, and you just always have more mana. It was too much. It needed to go.
Yeah, fair enough. What if, like you mentioned earlier, what if Aphelios had gone to 4 mana and kept the moon weapons at 2? Do you think, I mean, he's still really good. I think he still sees play then, but is he too good?
I don't think so. I think it would bring him down. The fact that you can't go Aphelios into Temple without the aid of like Dustbringer, I think would bring it down a bit. I kind of would have liked to see that just to see what would happen, but I mean, I'm sure, Riot's doing their internal testing and everything. I'm sure they went over this. So they probably know better than me. But I think what Riot wanted to accomplish with this nerf is they didn't want to gradually nerf him until Aphelios was an optimal level, because then you still have another seasonals where Aphelios is just the best possible thing you could be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. And like we mentioned earlier, Riot does listen and they do constantly go over the cards. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him, at some later point after he's been gone for a while, like maybe aggro runs amok for a while. You're like, okay, we'll put him to 4 mana, put the moon weapons down to 2, give him a day in the sun again. Okay, next on our list is Fiora, famously in the LULUSHEN deck, also occasionally in Mono Fiora, has gone from being a 3/3 down to a 3/2, and when she levels, she's no longer a 4/4, she is now a 4/3. What do you think about this one?
This is huge, huge. I know a lot of people saw this and immediately thought, well, Aphelios went down to a 3/2 and it didn't matter at all. And you're right, but Aphelios doesn't attack and he doesn't block. Fiora has to have the ability to challenge something immediately without dying, or she loses all effectiveness. If I can't attack, like if I'm playing Fiora Shen or Mono Fiora, right? And every time I want to attack with Fiora, I have to cast a spell first, I'm losing the game. So many of those matchups comes to I'm forcing you to cast your spell, and then I blow you out with my tricks in my, single combats, in my deny or whatever. And you at a 3/2, you no longer have that ability. There's only so many 1-power creatures in the meta, and not many, like Solari Priestess, Zoe, and that's it. And so, yeah, if every time you attack, you have to cast Sharp Sight first, or like have a Shen on board, it's just not going to go your way. I expect to not see Fiora in the meta in a dominant way at all. Maybe in like Fringe, but I don't think she'll be nearly the powerhouse she used to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've talked about this one quite a bit before the podcast, and yeah, for sure, this is a huge knock to her. And frankly, almost rightly so. I'm kind of just, happy to not see her be tier 1 for a while. Also, we're seeing a real resurgence of a lot of decks that she was keeping down, like a lot of aggro strategies are really coming back now, which I'm not even an aggro player, and I'm like, yeah, that's great. Give them their time, because basically when I started playing was around when Targon came out, and they've just gotten, trampled on by Fiora and Targon. And literally aggro hasn't really been a thing practically, so I'm happy to see it have its day in the sun. Though I will say, though, I do wonder if it gets to a point where aggro is so prevalent that there is a Fiora list that can, like, come and prey on that meta. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Let's say Azir Lucian like takes over. Fiora still destroys that deck because Sand Soldiers offer so many 1/1s that you don't have to cast this. Like I said, you don't have to cast a spell to take out one of their units. This is a nerf I expect in the future to get reverted. But right now, I think we'll see this change for 6 months. That's my guess. And then I think it's going to go back to probably a 3/3. Fiora Shen has just been dominant forever. It's been a tier 1 deck since like the inception of the game, right? It's at its time. let it lie for a bit.
Yeah, or maybe even like a 2/3. We spoke about that possibly being an option instead. Yeah, and better than a 3/3 for those of us that aren't loving Fiora. Okay, so those are the were maybe the top 3 decks.
The big ones, yeah.
Yeah, and they really got hit hard. Okay, a couple more patch notes here. Jarvan 4 goes from a 5/3 to a 6/4. When he's leveled, he goes from a 6/4 to 7/5. He was seeing basically no play. This does not make me want to play him a whole bunch more. but I never really put it with him in the
better.
first place. He's definitely better. Do you think this makes him any decks that start to pop up and actually be competitive with him now?
I mean, I don't know. The problem is like attacking with Demacia units hasn't been good for like a hot minute, unless you're like going really low, like scouts or something, right? Or you're rallying a bunch of times. And Jarvan's just so big. Like if I'm playing a very aggressive on the board type deck, my 6-mana thing needs to win me the game.
Yeah.
Right? It needs to be like Cythria. Like Cythria just ends the game if you attack with it and like rally. Jarvan, I don't think does that. We could see more Jarvan decks. I've been seeing him in like something like Garen Jarvan Elites. I've been seeing like a little bit of Shen Jarvan. So we'll see. But I'm skeptical.
Yeah, fair enough. Next up, moving on, we got Shyvana goes from a 4/4 to a 3/4, but she now has Fury, and when she levels up, she goes from a 5/5 to a 4/5. So not a huge. It's not really. It's. I guess this is a buff. In some situations, it'll be a nerf. It's just kind of like a just change. Like she's a dragon, she should have Fury, but we don't want her to be a 4/4 Fury. I guess. What are your thoughts on Shyvana?
I mean, it's like a sideways change, right? It's not really a buff, not really a nerf. I would call it a buff. It makes Dragon Chow better. Yeah, I think it's a buff, but it's like not enough of a buff that you're gonna like play Shyvana. You know what I mean? Like the card was bad before. If we're debating whether or not it's a buff, then it's probably not good enough to play now.
Yeah, like what is she, a 4/5 Fury when attacking? Like, aren't there like
and then if you
there's just like normal
better things to be doing.
There's so many cards that are better than that. Yeah, I wonder if they almost should have left her as a 4/4 with Fury. Maybe that would have just.
I think you could do that. Yeah, I mean, like that makes the Dragon Chow play like really goddamn good though. You go like Dragon Chow on 1, the Dragon Herald on 2, Shyvana on 3. It's attacking as a 6/6 with Fury.
Oh.
And it's like about to level up. That's pretty good.
Oh, I see. Because she hits the Dragon Chow, which makes her bigger from Fury.
Furies gets like halfway to her level, or like a third of the way to her level. Yeah, 4 damage.
Gotcha.
And then attacks as a 6/6.
Again, though, like, has she ever been good? Like, as long as I've played, she's never actually been like a tournament thing. So
I think that would totally be fine.
Yeah, because that's not like like that sequence is good, but it's not like, oh no, what would I ever do? Like there's like a bunch of things you could do.
Shyvana and then you go, okay, you have a 1/1. Like that's it, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, don't play her.
Pro tips from Mastering Runeterra: don't play Shyvana. Mm-hmm. Sorry to all the Shyvana lovers out there. I know you exist. My bad. Okay, next up, one that I'm next one, I'm really excited with this one. Lulu has gone from a 2/3 to a 3/3, and when she levels up, she goes from a 3/4 to a 4/4. Lulu was seeing absolute zero play on the tournament scene before this. I last night was given a Lulu. Who's Shen? The other LULUSHEN list that apparently I forget who it was that played the deck.
He was playing it on ladder.
No, it was someone. I got it from Z Turtle. It was one of the EU players. Apologies for not knowing the name. But they went up like 430 LP in like 24 hours or something because the deck is insane fast. It's literally the game is over by like turn 7, turn 6, like every single game. Every single game you've either won or lost by then, basically. It's absurdly fast. It's insane. And so I've had okay success with it. I have a winning record, but I don't think it's anything like super crazy. You know, I want to say it's probably in the 55% range. It's somewhere between 50 and 60. It's definitely above 50. But the games are insanely quick. Right? Like just like you're talking a couple minutes sometimes, like just fast. A lot of times your opponent just sees that they're dead and concedes. You're like, oh, they're gonna like you hit them for a bunch, cast rally. They're like, yep, that's the game.
You gotta send me that list. Make sure you put it in the
We'll definitely put it in the show notes below. I'm definitely also not playing it super optimally, though I've gotten a little bit better at it. So I don't know. Turtle himself said that he didn't think it was going to be great in tournaments, but that it's really good for the ladder. There's some like a bunch of random PNZ decks running around. You know, people that obviously listen to you and try to make Mystic Shot happen, and that's a real tough time for the deck. Everything's real squishy. But love to see it. I love to see it. You know, because Lulu's on no play, and any cards like this that's no play, like Lulu or Shyvana or whatever, I think they should keep giving them a little bit of love until they can see some play, and then if it's too much, pull it back down again.
Pull back. Yeah, I think the problem with Lulu specifically is that she can create super unfun patterns. Like she can create that kind of like strategy. Did you ever play when War Chefs was like a 2/3 or something?
No, but I've heard about it, and this deck plays War Chefs.
Yeah, so War Chefs was like a 2/3 or something, and like they would just go like 1-drop War Chefs, 3-drop Bannerman, and like the game was over.
Yeah,
And it felt so unfun. Like that's just not like I'm not playing the game. And if I'm
yeah,
playing the deck, I still don't feel like I'm playing the game. I'm just going ba ba ba. Are you dead? Right? Like I don't it just didn't create interesting play patterns. And I think they're trying to avoid that because Lulu has that kind of like play pattern, right? That's like how she works. She's a support. And it's very snowbally and steamrolly if they're ahead. And I don't think they want a meta where just like playing 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop is just like the best thing you can do, and your opponent like can't deal with it. That's just not fun. So I think they're taking it really slow with Lulu. This buff is big though. 3/3 is like infinitely better than a 2/3 for 3. Now it can attack into most board states on turn 3, which normally you couldn't because like I play Lulu, they play Draven, and then I like sob quietly because I can't attack anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see this, see where Lulu goes.
Yeah,
Do I think she's
you know
gonna
what?
be great? No.
Yeah, hearing you say that also, I'm like, that's basically what the deck is like that I'm playing now, right? I just go like, guy, rally, rally, and like, did you die or did you not die? Like, there's not a lot of interaction. There's not a lot of like exciting play patterns. There is some, with some barriers and sharp sights and, you know, things like that, like sequencing. But yeah, it does feel a little, I don't know, high rolly or whatever. It's kind of uninteractive for sure. And sometimes you just get them, there's nothing they can do, and it's like that's not fun. So yeah, I can see why you wouldn't want to push those type of cards too much. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, moving on, we got a couple buffs to another archetype that has some staunch defenders that hasn't seen the light of day or love for a while, and that's the Deep. We got Dredgers goes from a 1-mana 1/1 that tosses 3 to a 2-mana, sorry, a 1-mana 2/1 that tosses 3. That's a significant upgrade. A 2/1 obviously a lot better than a 1/1. I think we've
Hit the other one really quick, and then we'll talk about the deck.
okay. And then there is Sea Scarab. That's a 2-mana 1/2 that is now a 2-mana 2/3.
Yeah, so Deep sucked a lot before this, but yeah, like Dredger's going from a 1/1 to a 2/1 is a big deal because now it trades, which is like huge. Like you played Dredgers, and then I look at my goat in my hand and I'm just like really, really sad. You know, it just doesn't do anything. Just stonewalls me, right? And then like the Scarab also really helps. Like it's a body. I played against Deep a lot because you know Deep players come out in force when their deck gets buffed. Played against it quite a bit in the last couple days, and Dredgers into Sea Scarab is so hard to get past until like later in the game, like 1/2, and you just what are you attacking with? How are you getting through? Lee, yeah, on turn 6. You know what I mean? Like eventually, yeah, with Lee you're gonna win, but it gives the deck some legs. Do I think Deep's like good now? Not really. Deep needs a specific meta to thrive in, and if Zoe Lee's good, Deep's not going to be. But the deck definitely gets better.
Yeah, I've run into a lot of Deep as well. I actually like the deck. It's like it's just fun, you know. It's kind of like a little bit silly. Does some unique stuff. Get big giant boom booms. Some removal. What's not to like? I've run into a bunch too. Yeah, Lee is a really bad matchup. I'm pretty sure TLC is not a great matchup for them either. Also, the Lulu deck is not a very good matchup for them either. Yeah, so deep still a deck. Probably still not quite, definitely not tier 1. Maybe somewhere
But
it could be
it's
tier
playable.
2. Yeah,
It's playable now, which is enough for the deep players.
yeah, you can climb with it for sure.
Do I recommend it? No, but you can.
But it is fun and it can win. So that's all you need for the ladder if you play well. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Is the Dreadway has gone from being 9 mana to 8 mana. So this was typically in combination with concurrent timelines, playing a Ledros and then flipping into a Dreadway and one shot killing their opponent. They wanted to stop that, but now you can play the Dreadway on 8 and then Ledros on 9, just like on curve in the same deck, which is also a possibility. That deck was not good in the first place, and I staunchly defended concurrent timelines because it was fun and not good, and didn't think they need to change it. But they changed a little something. I'm fine with this. Concurrent timeline's still a thing. That's cool. What do you think about the Dreadway going to 8?
I'm actually stoked. I mean, it goes down to 8 and it loses 2 points of toughness. 6 is like way more vulnerable than 8, right? By the time you have 8 toughness, the only thing killing you is like vengeance. But I can now just play this card, which is huge. Like 9 mana. Like let's take a look at playable 9 mana cards in Runeterra that are units. It's literally just Ledros and Brightsteel formation. Like
Yeah,
it has to end the game when I cast the card. Or I can't play it. And so I just couldn't play Dreadway. But now it's 8 mana, which means I can cast Dreadway and then cast like Make It Rain or Withering Wail or whatever. And that's like okay. This is like an okay card to play on turn 8. And you can go turn 8 Dreadway, turn 9 Ledros, which is a huge threat. Just obviously just ends the game. But yeah, I've been experimenting with this card in like a keg control type deck with like TF and Gangplank. It's not bad. I think if we can, like, once the meta settles a bit, we'll probably find a list that works well into the meta, especially if you see a lot of go wide decks, like, I don't know, scouts or discard. Like this is probably where you want to be. So keep an eye on this one.
yeah. I ran into a TF Gangplank deck with my Lulu, and that did not go well for me at all. Yeah, so I guess maybe we should read out some of these cards. Also, yeah, thank you. I missed that the stats go from a 4-8 to a 4-6. For anyone that doesn't know, the Dreadway is now a 4-6 fearsome that doubles all damage dealt by your skills, spells, and allies. Oh, and allies.
And you draw a Gangplank.
And you draw a Gangplank. Well, I missed that and allies part. So just all your units.
So it doesn't come up often, usually because like you kill Dreadway or lose the game. But like, yeah, it doubles damage in combat and stuff.
Probably even I need to read the cards. That's cool. I'm excited. I'm excited to try that one out. Okay, next up is Shadow Assassin. This was a 3 mana 1/2 elusive that when it's summoned, draw 1 card. Now is a 2/1 instead of a 1/2. What are your thoughts on this lady?
I love it. I love it so much. I know this card used to be a 2/2 and was apparently like super dominant in the game. This was before either of us played, really. But this is my kind of card. Good.
Yeah,
it's a small unit that says draw a card. I want to play it. Like it's the Ionia Zap Sprayfin. And a 1/2, not very good, right? Like Sparklefly on its own does nothing. That's why you have to play it with pump spells. But a 2/1 is astronomically better because now it's like a threat, especially since it's elusive. Like it's never blocking, so you just get to hit every turn. You know, it's the difference between a 10 turn clock and a 20 turn clock. That's a big deal. I'm trying to find a good home for this deck. It's a great like filler. My decks aren't built around Shadow Assassin, but if I'm playing like an Ionia Targon deck or something and I want something on the 3 slot that fits in, this card's good. Just not sure exactly where it belongs yet.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the what is it, Guiding Touch, the burst heal 2 draw card. You know, when I first started playing the game, I think a lot of people are like, oh, this is like, oh, it's great, it's like it's life gain and you draw a card. But no, it's draw a card and it happens to do something else. It's really in there, like in your lease index and stuff, to activate Lee, to just cycle through your deck, get you a Lee. It's the same sort of thing, same sort of role with the Shadow Assassin here, where it comes down on 3, blocks something, deals some damage, or it starts chipping away at them, so that you have to hit them for less with your Lee, and that just draws you a card which, digs you into your Lees and your other relevant spells. Yeah, excited to see where that one goes. Also curious if there's any ways to like abuse it. Like in Magic, there's always ways to abuse these things as they draw a card where you can like bounce them or phase them. Or do you know it? Do you know of any?
Did someone say Homecoming? Yeah, this is like my now preferred Homecoming target. But there's also the 2-mana Retreat, where you can bounce something to your hand at fast speed, and then you get the return, I think it's called, right? The 1
Yeah.
mana burst, put a 3 mana. So like you could bounce anything to your hand. Let's say they point a Mystic Shot at your Zed. You bounce it to your hand, and then you can return Shadow Assassin to like draw a card, or just bounce it and return it to draw an extra card. Like nothing like broken, but the phrase "draw a card" on ETB, end of the battlefield, has always and will always be just a super powerful ability.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, next up we have Fey Guide. This is a 4 mana, was a 3/3, is now a 3/4, and says when you play it, grant an ally elusive. Is this also one that you are excited about, Bay?
I'm excited about it, because like it's better. It's a buff, and it shows that they're like looking out for Ionia, which I like. Is this card now like slam dunk good? No, but this is a good curve. Like you have Lulu and Zed on 3 that both want to be attacking and really want to not get blocked. And then on 4, you have something that can permanently make them not blockable except by elusives. Like that's solid. And then a 4-mana 3/4, not a bad card. Like the Traveler is a 4-mana 3/4, and that thing stonewalls boards. Yeah, like I'm kind of into this card. I don't see a home for it yet, but if we have a more aggressively slanted Ionia deck, possibly Lulu Zed or something like that, that's playing things like Shadow Assassin, maybe Young Witch, Sparkfly, that kind of stuff, like this. Maybe I know I just named off a bunch of elusive cards already, but like but those aren't the cards you need to give elusive to. It's the other cards like your champions. Keep an eye on it. Do I think it's going to be good right now? No, but we do have another Ionia champion coming out that may be good in. So
we'll see. One to keep an eye on. Okay, next up, this is one that I think is pretty solid. Legion Rearguard has gone from a 1-mana 3/1 that can't block to a 1-mana 3/2 that can't block. I've seen a number.
It was nerfed to 3/1.
Oh, so it's what do you call this? Like it's a nerf. Mm-hmm. It's a revert. Yeah, and I've seen it. Seen quite a bit of play so far the first couple days of the patch being out, and I think it's good. It's really given those sort of aggro decks a bit of a leg up, but it doesn't feel like it's too much. It doesn't feel oppressive. And I really think that the aggro strategies need like a little, like they have to be pushed a little bit more because of spell mana and the way the game plays out. I think they do need to have some very powerful units, and I'm kind of glad to see this change.
Yeah. Which is so funny because I remember when the game released, we looked at Vengeance and went, psh. Like, I guess you can only ever attack. Like, I guess aggro is just the best possible thing. But yeah, this card's it's just a really good, like, just a good card for aggro. Like, they kind of need it. Their 1-drops kind of suck. They have, like, the Fearsome Spider, which is pretty good. And, like, that's it. So, yeah, this is super solid. From what I heard, this used to be way too strong. But now I think it's totally fine. Totally fine. You know what blocks this? Dredgers.
1 mana block.
Yeah, too good. Too good. Yeah, glad to see this revert. I'm more glad to see this revert than just about the card, because I don't care about this card. I don't usually play the strategies that this card is included in. I am excited to see this revert because it shows that Riot looks back over their previous changes and cards that have been nerfed out of the meta and go, does this still need to apply? And I like that a lot. Um, it just means that some of my old favorites that got nerfed could maybe come back in the spotlight, or they're looking to, yeah, like just like Shadow Assassin, right? They're looking to like reintroduce these cards that used to be too powerful and now kind of aren't anymore. And that makes me feel very optimistic about the future of competitive play.
Yeah, same here. Hats off to Riot for really doing a great job on this patch. Okay, next one on our list is Esteemed Hierophant. Pronouncing that right?
Yeah, I think that's how that's pronounced.
So it is a 3-mana 3/4. Says when I'm summoned, advance your Buried Sun Disc 3 rounds. Used to be 2 rounds.
Used to be 2. Still bad. Still bad. But you may be like, this isn't nearly enough to make Mono Shurima playable, and you're right. But that's because we have more Shurima coming.
Yeah.
We only have like some of the region. So it's like Targon, right? Like the first set Targon came out, from what I was told, I started playing right about when Zoe came out, I think. It was bad. And people were like, you could never play mono Targon, right? How am I ever going to get the Allegiance card? But now Targon's like just insane. And I think we'll see something similar with Shurima. Do I think it'll be like the meta dominant region like Targon was? Not really. But if you think this is an underbuff, that's probably why. Because the devs know what's coming for Shurima. And it's just not there yet. It's just not enough. It's close. You could still play mono Shurima. Is it like good? Not really. But the bones are there, right? Like,
yeah,
it's almost there. It needs like 3 cards, I think, and then it could be like a real force.
Yeah, will be very interesting to see when the new cards come out. I low-key suspect that they will get those 3 cards, and we will see some very good Shurima decks. Just because, I mean, so much revolves around the whole Buried Sun Disc, things going to like level 3, that it's like, how do they not make that a thing eventually, you know? Make it good enough to see play. Because there's so many champions and cards that revolve around it. It's like almost for sure it's going to happen, just a matter of when. Next up, we have Callous Bonecrusher. Was a 4-mana 6/3. Now it's a 4-mana 6/4. What are your thoughts on the Bonecrusher?
Bad. It's bad. It's not constructed playable. It's an expedition card that even say so in the patch notes. You're not playing this card. I mean, that's all I have to say about this.
I just see it as a challenge now. I'm like, I'll show you. We'll make it work.
Play it. I hope I run into you.
I dare you. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Well, that's it. That's all the changes to the patch. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about how that affects the meta. What we think. You know, what decks are kind of winning now. What we've been seeing. So let's see. Let's go over the old staples real quick. TF Fizz. Was dominant, is now just good. Though, would you recommend for someone to pick it up to go climb the ladder? You think it's fine for ladder climbing?
Yeah, totally. I think like the top 3 decks on ladder right now are TF Fizz.
Oh,
like
interesting.
Top 3 players.
Yeah.
On the leaderboard.
I just wasn't sure if they had like not played since the patch and were just like still holding over from before, or if they were playing new TF Fizz.
No, there's a couple that have gained like a few hundred LP.
Oh wow.
Like 400 or 500. I mean, the thing is, you're just gonna run into a lot of like untested new decks.
Yeah,
and you're just gonna run them over because your TF is like, maybe you're not as good as you were before, but it's still good. I would advise trying to fit in 2 mind melds now, because you lack that like power on your Burblefish turns.
Yeah,
but an extra mind meld gives you just want to draw 1 every game pretty much.
Yeah, makes sense. Next down, Aphelios, pretty much dead in the water. Got nerfed right out. So bye-bye. Next, we have Fiora Shen. Again, really, really big nerf here. Haven't seen any people trying to make Fiora work. I think she's also more or less gone. What are your thoughts on Fiora?
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see her in a tournament lineup that plans on targeting these decks that filled the void when Fiora Shen left. I would not be surprised to see the shell of Fiora Shen just playing a little different without Fiora and then maybe something else. That shell is still very powerful. The Shen, River Shaper, Screeching Dragon, like it's still really good. Fiora is just not as reliable with WinCon anymore. But yeah, like like you said, you're playing LULUSHEN. That's something. It's a little different. It's not nearly as like late game mid rangey as Fiora Shen was, but yeah, it's Fiora so far is gone, but I would not be surprised to see the Fiora kind of decks still survive, even without Fiora.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Next on the list, we have TLC or Trundle, Lissandra Control or Combo. Did not get any nerfs. Where does that one fall in the meta now?
I think it's still really good. A lot of people are seeing a lot of success with it. I'm personally not a huge fan of the deck because it's so like if you don't draw Lissandra, you kind of just lose the game. And no matter how many entreats I run, I always hit Trundle on my entreats
Never
instead.
lucky.
Like I always get the one I don't need. So I don't run the deck a lot, but I know a lot of people are seeing a lot of success with it. Uh, the deck I think gets better with an established meta because you know what kind of removal spells you need to use, right? Like, do I need to run Ice Shards? Um, do I need more Vengeances? Do I actually need to run Ruination? Like these flex slots, do I want more Frostbite effects because Lee's really good? Things like that, right? These flex slots, well, they're very flexible in this deck. So yeah, I think once you know, like, all right, for example, Pirate Aggro is really, really good. So let's make sure we have lots of life gain and ways to deal with their dinkier units, and Vengeance is up top to deal with Gangplank, stuff like that. Oh, Lee Sin's kind of dominating the meta. Well, then we want to pack maybe Three Sisters along with a couple Flash Freezes or Harsh Winds or something like that to deal with the big Lee turns, and then make sure we have Vile Feast for Zoe, something like that, right? So I think the deck will continue to perform.
Yeah, I feel about the same. It's definitely there. It does very powerful things. The Watcher turns are kind of insane, and some decks just can't deal with it and they fold. The suite of removal is also very good against some of the decks. But I'm also with you. It's not one I think I'm going to be picking up to play any tournaments or anything unless the meta really lines up particularly well for it. I also just a lot of things can go wrong. It's one of those decks where you are playing combos, so you need all that to go correct, and then also you have a bunch of answers, and then like you were just saying, you need your answers to line up correctly against your opponent's threats, which they don't always do. It's just kind of like one too many like things that can go wrong, that can fail basically. But deck is still very good. One of our testing teammates, Kever, has played it quite a bit to quite a bit of success. Lots of other people are playing it. Even if you're not going to play it, know how it works. Be ready for it. Next on the list, a deck that neither of us particularly likes or will be playing anytime soon for an unhealthy amount of time is Lee Sin Zoe. What?
I was like, what deck is it? Like, what deck do I not like very much?
What could it be? So for those that don't know, B and I, big lovers of the Lee Sin Zoe. I was playing it a whole bunch before the patch when it wasn't even good. Still just love the deck a lot. And now it's kind of the one deck that survived out of the top 5, other than I guess TLC, that didn't get hit with any nerfs. However, so it is a powerhouse. It might be the best deck, quote unquote, currently. Debatable, heavily debatable. The problem is that it does struggle against some of the more aggressive strategies, such as discard aggro, spiders, Lucian-Azir. Yeah. Not an aggro deck, just aggressive in nature.
Mm-hmm. Aggressively slanted combo deck.
That's for you. What am I? Anywho, it does struggle against these decks, and those decks have now had a resurgence because of Fiora and Aphelios getting knocked, not even down, just getting knocked out. So do you want to pick up Lee? Do you want to play Lee? Will Lee have to adapt? Bae, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, my big take on this when we were talking about it earlier was I think Lee Sin's going to be the dominant deck in the meta, but I do not think it will be the Lee Sin we're used to seeing. I think it will be Zoe Lee, and it will change. We'll have to be able to confront this like aggro menace that we're seeing on ladder right now. And you just I'm not sure what that'll be, what form that'll take. Um, but for example, right now I'm running a lot less like spell answers, and I'm running a lot more units. I'm running like Shadow Assassins, I'm running the Fangs, things like that, just to try to like slow aggro down just a little bit until I can get my feet underneath me. But yeah, I think the deck's gonna be very good. And like the Lissandra deck, it's flexible. Way more than the Lissandra deck. Like the entire shell of the deck can change. You have like Zoe's, you have Lee's, you're not cutting those, you're not cutting Eye of the Dragon, right? You're not cutting your denies and stuff. But like the rest of the deck is really flexible. As we saw in seasonals when I used Homecoming Temple in the Fangs. Like that was something that um you just didn't really see in the deck before. So it's very flexible deck, very powerful. Are you ready for my super hot take though?
Ooh, hold on.
It's
Let me
super hot.
stretch.
It's like
Let me
flaming
stretch.
hot take. All right.
Oh, okay, hit me with it. I'm ready.
In 3 weeks, Zoe Karma will be the better tournament deck than Zoe Lee. That's my take.
Zoe Karma. You know what? I can see that. I was actually just I was gonna go the other way though. I was gonna say, do you think there's maybe a better champion to pair with Lee than Zoe that might combat these aggro decks a little bit better? Because then you still keep the combo with the Lee, but like Zoe's a little squishy. She gets kind of run over. She's better at grinding and like mid game. Not really good, not great in the early game. So maybe there was something there. I don't know what, but that was gonna be my question to you.
I actually think Zoe's very good against aggro because I can play her, hit once, and then trade her off.
Yeah.
I think too many people make the mistake of protecting Zoe at the expense of their life. Quinn, come here. At the expense of their life total, when they could just like hit once, get a star chart, find like a serpent or something, or a moon silver or equinox to facilitate a dragonling on their Eye of the Dragon, and then just trade her off and save 6 life or whatever. So I think Zoe fits very well in Lee. I do think Zoe Karma does much better into aggro because you play the Aphelios gun, the gifts. So you have like 6 copies of Eye of the Dragon. Since it's your only 2-drop, you just you play gifts into Crescendum, get Eye, and that's already 2 spells, right? That's 4 mana, 2 spells. You get 1 mana back, and you have an Eye of the Dragon on the field with Dragonlink coming next turn. Super powerful. You get to play the full set of the Fangs. Yeah, I expect Zoe Karma to do very well.
Yeah, so interesting. I love Karma as well, but she's another champion that we really have not seen like in the tournament scene in a while. She did a good job of like going over the top of things, but then there was a whole bunch of decks that would go over the top of her, so it's like, oh, her endgame wasn't even the best thing. What's kind of keeping her down at the moment? Do you think you need the meta to settle? Is that what it is, so that you can kind of target?
Yeah, a little bit. Fizz TF is still a rough matchup. It's still a rough matchup. And then yeah, the meta settling would be nice. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to play Notify or not right now because it's horrible. Unless my opponent's playing Noxian Fervor, then I absolutely have to have it. Like, there's so many games where like I'm playing Zoe Karma or Zoe Lee or whatever, right? And I load up and I see my opponent's deck and I go, okay, here are the cards I can Notify. It's just this card. All right, so if I see that card put on the stack, I have to Notify it because it's my only target. Right? It's like a Vile Feast, and I'm like, can't have that Notify because it's their only one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the deck, I think is going through a lot of changes. I'm playing the 2/1 elusive that just got buffed. Hold on. Shadow Assassin. I'm playing Shadow Assassin in my Zoe Karma deck. I'm cutting my copies, all my bounce spells right now because there's not really any good bounce targets besides like exactly Lee Sin. Which is weird because like I think Homecoming was like one of the deck's main strengths before. I also played it with 3 copies of Temple, and then Temple got nerfed, so I would cut Temple, and I'm not sure if I should have it in there. I'm not sure what I should replace it with if I cut it. Like the deck will see some changes, and I think once the meta settles, it will be very, very strong when you can ban one of its bad matchups.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's interesting to see that like Lee Sin, maybe it won't be the best deck. It's definitely very, very, very powerful, but like there's a lot of rough matchups for it. Seems indicative of a very healthy meta. Okay, so moving on, we're talking a little bit about Lucian-Azir. This is a deck that was kind of like nipping at the heels of the top 5 to like kind of break in to be one of the top 5 decks before the patch, and it didn't get any nerfs. Instead, all of its predators basically got nerfed. What do you think of Lucian-Azir?
I'm gonna say I really like the deck, and like that's not true. I personally don't like the deck, but I like the deck as a pick right now. It's super strong. It's been dominating like the Zoe Lee matchup. Just like playing a couple of things and playing unremovable units in the form of the 2-mana Dais, like Emperor's Dais, I think it's called. Just playing that, and then like if I'm playing control deck like Lysandre Trundle, I can't kill it. Like they're just gonna keep making units every single turn. And that in combination with Lucian and like 5 rally spells just means like sometimes they attack 4 turns. I mean 4 times in a turn. They attack with their scouts. They attack. They rally with Lucian. Then they rally. Like, and it's so hard to keep up with. And decks like Zoe Lee just can't. So unless we see the meta taken over more by decks like Ash LeBlanc with strong, tough units that can survive a combat against all of the threats that Azir Lucian are bringing to the table with some combat tricks, and things like Reckoning is very strong against them. I think Azir Lucian is set to do very well in the meta.
Yeah, it's a really interesting deck. I get blown out by it all the freaking time, mostly because I'm playing Zoe Lee and other decks are kind of weak to it. But then when I try to play it, I feel like I don't have as much success as I like feel that other people do, or
unstoppable on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
And then when you're the one in the driver's seat, you're like, well,
Rally?
not really
Not Rally.
doing anything.
Lucian? Not Lucian.
Nope. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I guess the talking about it like a combo deck makes a lot more sense when you don't draw the right pieces and you lose because of that. There is a little bit of that. Yeah. And then when you do draw the right mix, you just blow them out of the water, supernova style. Mm-hmm. So yeah, okay. So you mentioned some of the like the Ash decks might be like a predator to the Lucian-Azir.
I think it's set to do really good. I've been telling people this for like a month, and nobody plays this deck. But like this deck stomps Lee, because you just play big threats they can't deal with and can't block, and then you play like 4 freeze effects for their Lee. Like it's so powerful. Reckoning just kills everything in the deck. Yeah, it's such a powerful deck that I'm just not seeing people play. It also beats up on Azir Lucian. I think that it probably I'm just making this up. I don't actually know. I don't play the deck very much. I think it struggles against the aggressive decks with reach because the deck has no healing. So if Spiders hits you 3 times or whatever and puts you at 10, like you probably just die.
Yeah.
Your clock isn't quick enough to like keep them out of the game, right? And they're going to hit you with Doom Beast and Decimates and Fervors and the Imperial Demolitionist or whatever. Like, so I think it probably has a rough time against that. Definitely a deck that if the meta goes in the right direction, it could just absolutely stomp. It's also a nice inclusion to some tourney lineups. If you're looking to soft target maybe Lee or Azir Lucian, I would definitely take a peek at this deck. It doesn't block you from playing anything else you would really want to play, like unless you're playing Scargrounds, which you can, right? That deck's actually better than it used to be. But you know, like Freljord Noxus isn't a region combination I'm like really needing to put in my lineup. And I'm not putting Ash LeBlanc in anything else. So it's kind of another like free include that if your lineup is built to maybe take advantage of all the leads you expect in the meta, this could be a very strong pick.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting to me that like basically all the decks we've talked about now that are left standing, they all kind of have like natural predators and they all have like rough matchups. I'm not really seeing any decks that like before like Aphelios or TF Fizz that just were like, yeah, I'm pretty good into like whatever. Like there's not like a lot of and but now it's like, oh man, there's some almost every one of these decks we talk about have a matchup that's like a nightmare. It's like an actual like really, really hard matchup. So are there any other decks that you want to talk about specifically? I thought maybe
I'd actually really like to expand on what you were just saying there. I'd
Mhm.
like to ask you a question. Because there's no like there's a lot less 50-50 decks, like Fiora Shen, 50-50 deck. Um Aphelios decks, 50-50 decks. I mean 50-50, but it was like 60-40. These decks are like good into everything. And so we really advocated hard for tourney lineups that focused on strong decks that did strong things that were good into most of the field. But with this kind of, I don't want to say rock paper scissors because it's not like that bad, right? But something more like that with decks that are very good into some things and less good into others. Do you expect it to be more profitable for your lineup strategy to change?
Yeah, this is a great question, and basically what we're all going to have to try and figure out over the next coming weeks here, leading up to seasonals. Like just theory crafting it. If there's no way to get like a specific edge, um, because if you have three decks that are good against aggro, and then you go up against a not aggro lineup, like you're dead. But if you go up against an aggro lineup, then you roll them. So like that's one way to do it, but I don't know. Like it seems to me like you're kind of just like you're just gambling then on each pairing on what you're going up against, and eventually, especially like in something like seasonals where you only have like one, maybe two losses to give, probably one for the majority of people though. I don't know. That seems like a big gamble. I feel like I'd rather do something where I'm bringing something like Lee, um, Lucian-Azir, and like an overwhelm deck, or like something where it's like, yeah, they are like three different sort of pillars, um but they do have some common enemies, so like none of them really want to see, I don't know, spiders too much, or burn, so you like that's like an obvious ban, and but you could still have game against like a discard aggro if that's one of their three. Likewise, a lineup that's maybe wants to ban Lee. Like, okay, they ban Lee, but now you probably still have like one good matchup, one bad matchup after you ban whatever's worse for yours, and then theoretically it leaves you with a couple like coin flip type scenarios. I don't know if that's better though than just going like straight coin flip on your whole matchup. Um, it seems like it's not though. Like I want it to be, but it seems like what ends up happening is you end up against a lineup where they're able to ban one of your decks that's actually really bad for them, and then you have one that's like medium, and then one that's good for them. And so like it ends up not kind of working out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think the more polarized matchups are, the more aggressive you have to be with your lineup selection. Not aggressive like playing aggro decks. I mean aggressive like taking chances.
Hmm.
Um, because like if everything's more or less 50-50, I just take 50-50s and like just try to be the better player. Maybe you could do something like I did with seasonals and ban something and try to improve your mirror matches and stuff like that. But if everything's a 70-30, then I feel like you want to capitalize and just try to hit your 70-30s more often. Um, that's super feel bad, and I really hope the meta doesn't go in that direction because I don't like those kind of formats. I prefer the main factor of my wins and losses to not be the deck I brought, but the skill of myself and my opponent. Um, and I don't think that's currently where we're headed. By the way, I'd like to put that in there. This isn't like doom and gloom. It's just if we find ourselves in a meta like this, because it hasn't like shaken down up yet. We don't know where everything's going to end up. So it could, in theory, be like a rock paper scissors, like super rock paper scissors format. I don't expect it to, but it could. Um, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there. Like, what if it is? Where do we go from here? Like, what do we need to change um, in order to give ourselves the best advantage possible?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about it's today's Friday. There are tournaments this weekend. So anyone that's listening to the podcast that maybe is trying to pick some decks, I'm going to play in the I think OLS tournament tomorrow, and I think I'm likely going to bring something along the lines of Lee Sin, an Overwhelm deck, And then something else that I just think is powerful, like maybe Lucian-Azir. Just because, I mean, I don't know what I'm going into. First off, I think everyone's just going to be throwing stuff at the wall, and I think those 3 decks are quite powerful. And I also think that, like, they do have some game against everything. Even if it's 730, like, I feel like I can pull out games with Lee Sin against aggro lists, you know?
Yeah, you can steal games all the time. All the time. Like you just cast Mentor and Sparklefly and they don't answer and you win the game. Same thing with your bad matchups on control. Like sometimes you just combo out with Lee and you just win the game. So yeah, I feel you. But I think most important, if you're gonna play in a tournament this weekend, I will not be, I'm busy. But if you're gonna play in a tournament this weekend, you have to come prepared for aggro.
Yeah,
Because
right.
it's gonna be there. It's gonna show up, right? So if your lineup goes, well, I hope I don't run into aggro, like don't show up. Just don't even register.
Yeah.
Because it will be there. And anytime in any like card game, when you see a big change happens to the meta, aggro does well because it's more cut and dry on how you want to build it, and your all threats no answers. So there's no wrong questions. There's only wrong answers, right? So aggro every turn just goes, can you deal with this? Can you deal with this? Can you deal with this? And if you say no any of those times, you lose the game. And so if you're playing a control deck and you just make a wrong call and you have too many vengeances and ruinations because you expect a lot more mid-range strategies and then you run into burn, you're screwed. But aggro doesn't have that limitation, and that's why it does so well in the beginning of formats. So come prepared. Be there with your life gain and your like vile feasts and
The deep.
what have you. The deep kind of crushes aggro, I feel like. Just stonewalls them early and then beats them over the head late.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of the decks that we haven't sort of touched on. We've sort of mentioned Vlad Braum real quick. I played that a bit. Deck's legit. Pretty good against aggro. It has legs. It's not a meme. Give it a try. I had like a 70% win percentage or something on the ladder with it, not knowing what I was doing at
good.
all.
Yeah, it's good. Hard. It has a rough time against the aggro decks with reach again, like spiders.
Yeah.
But the completely like board centric ones, I feel like your Azir Lucian matchup is like really good because what do they do? Like attack into you, and you're just like, yes.
you have a million things that deal 1 damage to everything. You have like so much stuff. Mm-hmm. You have units that deal 1 damage to stuff. Like there's all kinds of clearing out little small dudes. So that's definitely something to take a look at. Then a couple more aggro decks that are good. Spiders we talked about is just the same sort of spider aggro burn deck that's been around for forever and has done quite well for a lot of people climbing the ladder. And discard aggro, which was making a big resurgence at the right before the patch and has still out there kicking butt because those are just good, solid, aggressive decks that are well tuned already. So I'd expect to see a decent amount of those going into this weekend's tournaments.
Yeah, if I were looking to play an aggressive deck that's not Azir Lucian, I would bring one that has reach. I don't want to bring one that just like, I don't think I would play scouts right now. There's a lot of things that just like get on the board and stop you, like deep.
Yeah.
Right. Something like that. Or the LeBlanc Ash deck. Like I want to be able to finish my opponent off outside of combat at this current moment in the meta.
Yeah, talking about it now, if you were going to bring a lineup, what would your lineup be for this weekend? Would you bring Lee Sin, knowing that you're just going to face probably a wave of aggro decks? And anyone that's good against your Lee, that's good against, they're just going to ban your Lee.
Yeah, they're just going to ban Lee. I think I would actually bring Zoe Karma. I think I would perform probably a little bit better with Lee, like a little bit better with Lee. But I would really like to see how Zoe Karma feels. And I think it will field so many less bans than Lee. Like if you see, right, like if you see Zoe Lee in my lineup, you're probably just gonna ban Zoe Lee, like almost regardless of what you're playing, unless you're like unless you're targeting Lee, right? But Zoe Karma, I feel like people don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
Like it's good. It won the last seasonals in SEA, like it's a good deck. And I feel very comfortable with it. And I would like more practice in a tournament setting to figure out a more optimal build for the deck. So Zoe Lee or Zoe Karma, right? I'm bringing one of those. And then I would probably bring something like Thresh Nasus actually, I think we haven't talked about this, but
Oh
we were
yeah, I
talking
forgot
about it
about that
earlier.
one. Yeah.
I think Thresh Nasus or like um, the Shadow Isles Shurima deck with like the summon, summon a or draw a champion or whatever. Like I think those decks are actually well positioned. I saw one doing very well in the ladder that was an Undying version that ran like 3 Butchers and 3 Rights, and it ran 1 Thresh, 3 Nasus, and it was like pretty good. It ran 3 copies of Crumble, which
Oh
is wild. But
yeah.
the whole deck is like 1 Thresh, 3 Nasus, 3 Atrocities, um, 3 copies of the Summoning Rite, 3 Butchers,
Free
and then
crumble.
like fodder. 3 Crumble, yeah. And I was
Wow.
like, no way, right? And I ran it. It was pretty good. Um, so yeah, I think one of those decks is well positioned to like do well in the meta. Again, your flex slots kind of need to be on point. Like, do you want 3 Vile Feast? Are you running Withering Whale? Is the box really good right now? Like these kind of things need to be figured out. But I expect it to do pretty solid here. So maybe that. So Zoe Lee, maybe like a Thresh Nasus. And the third deck is probably whatever I happen to win with that morning. Let's be honest. I'd probably just be like, because at this point, we don't know what people are gonna bring. Um, and what I want more than anything is experience in the meta. So I'm willing to bring whatever just to get a feel for it, just to like
Yeah.
kind of see if it sticks. You know what I mean? I don't think I need a plan. My plan is just bring these decks that are good against most things and like just kind of see what happens. Field some knowledge and experience for next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, nothing. There's literally nothing as good as actual tournament experience. Scrimming is like
Yeah.
close, but real tournament experience is invaluable. Another deck we didn't talk about is Nightfall. The Nightfall deck.
Nightfall, another deck that has some reach, aggressive. I like Nightfall a lot right now. That's all I have to say about it. It's
Nice.
good. One more.
Okay.
I
Okay.
actually would probably bring this. This would probably be my third deck. Tom Rocca.
Oh yes, Soraka's Tom Kench.
Yeah, Tom Rocca. And I ban whatever, I ban Fizz TF or whatever if someone's bringing it. And then I have just a lineup that I feel like's pretty good into a lot of things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting, man.
I think like Tom
Format's
Rocca
wide open.
stomps Lee. It's an interesting format we find ourselves in, which is why I'm so excited about it.
Yeah. Speaking of tournaments to play in, we have ours coming up in 2 weeks. It's $1,000 prize pool for all of our patrons. And then it's the same format as seasonals. So we're trying to give you guys the best possible seasonals testing experience that you can get your hands on. And then it's seasonals the weekend after. It's literally no time at all. There's like next weekend, there's our tournament, and then there's seasonal. So if you guys are looking to get tournament experience or just improve in Runeterra anyway, come join us in our Discord. It's free to join. If you want to join the tournament, you can sign up on our Patreon. All the links to that stuff will be below. And then we also do weekly calls that you can sign up for on the Patreon. They're learning calls, and we also do one-on-one coaching sessions if that's your jam. And with all that said, I think we will bid you adieu until next week. Bye. Awkward sign off achieved.